just loves you. He wants to provide for you, but it does take faith. I don't know, God. Like, I don't know. I don't feel like I don't even know what the qualifications are to like be a successful podcaster or public speaker or whatever. What I do know is that I'm truly genuinely in the place where I'm like, yo, like my life is not my own. Like I don't know what the best way is to live my life. Like I've tried to go about like my own version of success and being my own boss and like, you know, I could do this, I don't need a man, I don't need this, you know. And it's so exhausting and so overwhelming if you're walking around with a whole bunch of heavy burdens saying like, how am I supposed to figure this out by myself? Like, how am I? You're not meant to. All right, so I took some time to pray, get the jitters out. Now let's get to business. So I don't even know where to start, guys. Like, if you know me, did I say my name? I probably didn't. My name is Jada Chai, and this, I think I said that. I don't know. This is my first podcast. Yeah. Well, let's just start with the basics, right? Why is it called PV31 Podcast? So PV31 comes from a Bible verse, Proverbs 31, and it is essentially, it talks about this wife of noble character. So here I got my Bible. We could read it together. And by the way, this cute little pink Bible that I have is actually the NLT. I have read the NIV, and it's really good. But as I've been like reading some stuff over, I find that the NLT is just hitting, man. It's just so good. So let's go to it might take me a minute. Sorry, it's taking me a long time to find it. Okay. I found it. So the title is like a wife of noble character, and essentially it talks about this ideal woman of God. She's like the it girl of the Bible. She's just really that girl. She's like virtuous, she's trustworthy, she's productive, she's a good steward of her things. She just has so many great Christ-like qualities, and I feel like I'm now finally at a place in my life where I truly desire to embody these things. And so I guess like this whole podcast is just kind of like my personal journey of how I'm pursuing becoming a Proverbs 31 woman in my own sense, because I don't necessarily believe like that this is one specific woman that was being talked about. I really think, like I said, that it was more so an ideal, right? So that's the purpose for the title. But oops, in regards to like other housekeeping things like testimony, mission statement, for testimony, I'm thinking it might just be better for me to talk about it as I go through different episodes, because the topics will most likely be from personal experiences or things that I've been growing in my own relationship with God. So I feel like when I sit down with you guys, I'll be able to explain better in just the context. That's how I feel right now. If I change my mind and I'm like, oh, it'd be better to just sit down and make a whole timeline, I'll probably do that, but just not right now. Not for the first episode. It was too much, like, it was stressing me out to think about it. And I was like, let me just start something. So now that we got to talk a bit about our housekeeping things, I wanted to kind of jump into why I'm even here. Like, why am I on your screen? Why am I starting a podcast? Like, if you know me in person, you know, I don't think that you would think that I'd be the type of person to jump in on a podcast, right? I feel like I could be seen as very reserved, very quiet, very soft-spoken, very not controversial, very much just like smile, kiki, go with the flow, right? But I actually the title's gonna be here, but I put the title, Don't Let Comfort Keep You From Your Calling. And I've been thinking about that a lot. Like, Honestly, life has just been, I feel like I'm in this space where I'm truly thinking more about my life, and not just how I could improve my life or how much I could work or go to school to like be the best version of myself, but also thinking about my life like, all right, God, what were you thinking about me, like when you made me, when you put me here, like what was the point? Because surely I can have like all these great plans in my heart that I'm working towards, which I think is good. But at the end of the day, I feel like recently I've been thinking beyond just like me and thinking like, all right, God, how do I align my plan for my life with your plan for my life? Like, how do I recognize and submit to your calling for my life? And so I've just been thinking more deeply about that. Like, and I think that one of the biggest things that would hold me back is like comfort. And I've been thinking about that a lot. Like, I, I feel like in different parts of my life, when things get uncomfortable, or when it's like time for me to really step out of my comfort zone, I'm like, oh, I don't know about that, that's kind of like where I would draw back. Because I was really thinking like, okay, like what would be the thing that would stop me from living my life to the fullest for God? And it's 1000% comfort. So that's kind of what I wanted us to talk about today. So, like, for example, in the gym, right? I thought about this whole idea of how I've been going to the gym recently, and I'm trying to get fit, you guys. I'm trying to get fit. Summer's around the corner. Graduation's kind of sort of in sight somewhere towards the end of the year. And I want to look right. Like, I want to look good. So I've been in the gym. I've been consistent. Actually, sometimes not so consistent. But one thing I would notice is that even when I wasn't being consistent, what mattered even more, why am I talking with that accent? What mattered even more about my consistency inside the actual gym was my consistency outside the gym with how I was living like my life. So what I chose to eat, how I chose to sleep, all of that stuff. Ultimately, in fact, I think it ended up being even more important. So, for example, like on the first day, I went up to the gym guy and he's like trying to coach me through things, and he's trying to set me up for success. So he's like, he sits me down and we're talking about my gym goals. So I'm like, yeah, I want to get snatched like this. I want to, I'm giving him the visuals. I'm giving him the vision. And I'm like, yeah, like I want to look good. I want it to be giving hourglass. I want it to, I want everything to look nice. And he's like, okay, how are you going to get there? And I'm like, I'm glad you asked. So then I was like, okay, so probably gym on Monday, Tuesday, maybe not Wednesday because I have school on Wednesday, but then Thursday, Friday, and that seems like a good split to me. And he's like, okay, cool. So do you know what workouts you want to do? And I'm like, yeah, of course. So, I'm going to split it. And I don't remember what I said to him, but I was like, I'll do legs, glutes, and hemis on the first day. On the second day, I'll probably do like back and buys. Third day, probably happen again with the glutes, but this time I'm gonna do it with quads, and then and so forth. So I gave him the whole split, and he was listening, and then he was like, okay, do you know like what workouts you do? And I'm like, yeah, like put me on that. Let me do the RDLs, put me on the leg press, give me all of that stuff. Like, I want that now. And he's like, okay, cool. And then he was like, but do you know what you're going to eat? I said, now you got me. Because that's always like the part of my fitness journey that I have struggled with tremendously. And in fact, it's just more recently that I've been considering it like a fitness journey. Like, I've been calling it that before, but more so like treating it, it just wasn't, it was more like a hobby or like a pastime or something that was therapeutic, which is fine. But I did not see it as like a lifestyle. It was just more so like this thing that I would do, if that makes sense. So, yeah. It wasn't fitness. It was just going to the gym. And then I just do whatever I want outside the gym. I think if anything I was kind of just like, all right, well, I go in the gym so that I could eat whatever I want outside the gym. Like, that's kind of the point. No, like, you have to have balance, you know? So yeah. So he sits me down and he's like, what are you gonna eat? And I'm like, I don't know, like, I guess I'll just try to meal prep or something like that. But he was like, no, Jada, like, you really have to know what you want to eat. And he sat me down another area and he drew me this chart. He was writing all these figures and he was pretty much just showing me, like, it was like 10% and 90%. And he was like, Jada, look, this whole workout split, this whole, oh, you want to get big, oh, you want to use these machines, oh, you're going to go on this like schedule, that's great, but that's 10%. And then he was like, your 90% is everything you do outside, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, because I'm not, it's not new to me. Like, I think I've more so heard like 20 and 80% rather than 10 and 90%. I was like, no, you're just being extra. But I'm familiar. I've heard that, oh, like, you are what you eat and you have to pay attention to that more. So I was like, okay. And, it's interesting because I started to think about, like, my whole perspective of, like, the gym versus, like, fitness. And I started to think on how that also relates to my relationship with God. And I think the logic was kind of like, oh, like, you can't out train a bad diet. Like, let me explain. So, don't freeze. I'm gonna have to cut these parts out, man, because I'll be getting nervous. But yeah, so he showed me the breakdown and I was thinking, I was like, ugh, and then I thought about it in relation to my walk with God. I was like, yo, that's kind of crazy, because I think in that same way, I've had seasons where I will go to church, right? Let's think of like going to church or reading the Bible as like going to the gym. It's a spiritual workout, right? You're getting to flex your muscles, you're getting to memorize scripture. It's great, right? And then you leave church, you leave the Bible, like, it's on the side of your room now. But what are you doing with the rest of your time? So I was thinking about all the stuff that he was saying and all the stuff that I knew about just how much it was important to look at your lifestyle, to look at the 90% versus the 10%. Like, the 10% is just that time that you're in there flexing your muscles and all that stuff, but the rate of growth and you being able to maintain it, that really has a lot to do with everything that you do outside. And I thought about it in relation to my walk with God, because I've also been reading Exodus. I've been reading through the Old Testament, and the part that I was at was around like the middle of Exodus, so like Exodus 16. And there's something I wanted to read because it really stood out to me. So, let's read that. Okay, so we're going to read Exodus 16, 31 to 35, but for a bit of context. So, Exodus begins, well, at the end of Genesis, there is this Israelite boy named Joseph, and he and his family end up settling in Egypt. And Exodus begins with telling us how the Israelites multiplied tremendously and they became enslaved by the Egyptians, and they were treated very harshly and enslaved for about like 400 years, right? to the point where God heard their cry and he saw their misery, and he decided to raise up a man named Moses to facilitate their exile from Egypt into the promised land, right? So the part where we're at in Exodus 16 is where they have been rescued by Moses and released from the hand of Pharaoh and out of Egypt, out of that terrible place where they were treated terribly. And now they're kind of like in this wilderness season where they're having to like rely and build trust on God. So in sorry if I'm taking that. I'm just like wanting to give context and explain it correctly. So in 16, we're seeing where it's called manna and quail from heaven. And oh man, instead of 31 to 35, really it should be 3. Why did I put 31 to 35? What the heck? That was a mistake, y'all. Anyways, I'm sorry, I'm nervous. I'm new at this, guys. Please have grace. Anyways, so we're gonna start. Okay, so we're gonna read. We're actually just gonna read. We're just gonna read. So we're just gonna read Exodus 1 through 3. I'm sorry if I said something else. I got confused with like what verse I wanted to focus on. But the title is Manna and Quail from Heaven. So I'm starting in verse 1 in the NLT. Okay. So then the whole community of Israel set out from Elim and journeyed into the wilderness of Sin, between Elim and Mount Sinai. They arrived there on the 15th day of the second month, 1 month after leaving the land of Egypt. There too the whole community of Israel complained about Moses and Aaron. If only the Lord had killed us back in Egypt, they moaned. There we sat around pots filled with meat and ate all the bread we wanted, but now you have brought us into this wilderness to starve us to death. I read this. You guys, I read this and I was like, the audacity, the gall of these Israelites to have just been brought out of 400 years of slavery, to have been freed from misery, from mistreatment, from abuse, from murders, from the list could go on and on and on. They just got freed of so many different things. And they continue to do this too, like while they're journeying through the wilderness, every little thing that happens, their first resort is to complain, and not only to complain against God, by the way, not just Moses, but against God, because Moses is just operating out of obedience. He's simply just a vessel. Their first resort is not only to complain, but to be like, if only the Lord had killed us back in Egypt. If only we could go back to Egypt. And I was like, they would have rather to be killed in their comfort. And I was like, that is so sick and twisted. Like, they would have rather to stay in their comfort. They would have rather to be in Egypt. They were like, shoot, at least in Egypt we had good food. Oh my gosh, you guys, it just gets me really bad, because I'm like, there's no way you just walked away from centuries of slavery and mistreatment, and your first thing when anything happens is like, dang, at least back in Egypt that food was good. Like, that's so crazy to me. And then I felt convicted immediately, because I was like, wow, sometimes when things get rough for me, my first thought is to go back to circle back to the thing that had me captive, that God had freed me from because of comfort. You know, I think sometimes, actually, I was supposed to look up the definition. I'm sorry. Sometimes we could have this thing in psychology, and it's called, got it. It's called rosy retrospection. Rosy retrospection. I think I said it right. So, rosy retrospection is our tendency to recall the past more fondly than the present. Well, that was underwhelming. I want to read it. Rosy retrospection is a cognitive bias where people tend to recall past events more positively than they actually experience them, often viewing the past as better than the present. And I think this is actually something that a lot of us do. Like, we like to talk like a whole bunch of big talk on how we are walking boldly with the Lord and everything's going great. But the minute you cannot see where your help will come from, and the minute you're placed in any sense of discomfort, if we're being honest, sometimes our thought is to circle back to the thing that we have been freed from, because at least it was comfortable, right? At least, these are just examples. At least back in that toxic relationship, I knew what I was getting. At least back at that job that I prayed for God to release me from, at least there, I knew what I was getting. I knew I was getting paid. At least, you know, blah, blah, blah. And the list could go on and on and on. At least when I was addicted to drugs, there was a temporary release. And I knew what I was getting. I knew I was going to crash. But at least for a moment, I knew I was going to feel high. At least I know for a moment it would relieve the pain. Right? At least if I was sleeping with that person and in bondage, at least it provided a momentary sense of comfort. Like, and that clocked me so bad because I'm like, wow. They voluntarily was just like, yo, like, this is too hard. I wish that I would have just been able to die in my comfort zone. And I'm like, man, like, I don't want that to be me. I thought about it. I was like, please, I don't want that to be me. And so I guess, like, honestly, that's a part of the reason I'm here, because I'm very much the type of person to where, like, I could do very well, like, flying under the radar. You don't see a post from me in years, and then if you do, it's just like a milestone, like I graduated or something big, like a birthday or something that I wanted to share. But, or like I pop out 3 years from now, be like, I'm married or something like that. But in terms of, like, I just have never seriously considered the idea of, like, posting on YouTube or being present on social media or having any form of platform where it would, like, just stretch me like this, you know? But I truly believe that this podcast is something that God could use. I just feel like this could be something beautiful. Maybe even just for me, maybe even these are just going to be really long videos with no views, and I'll just be able to watch them to see, like, God's hand on my life and to see how I've been able to progress and, like, grow as a Proverbs 31 woman, how I've been able to seek him, how I've been able to deny myself, how I've been able to put him first. And even that would be a blessing, because at the end of the day, I would still be very proud of myself for stepping outside of my comfort zone to seek him. And if not, like, I think that this could also be something beautiful for other women. Like, I would love for this to be out. I I mean, I'm kind of just like, anybody could watch it, but in my head, I'm really like, wow, like, I just want it to be a safe space for the girls. Like, let's talk about real things. Let's talk about things that Christian women struggle to talk about, because I feel like that's something too. Like, I think we fail to realize we're all human. We all go through different things. And I think that relates to something that I was wanting to say. I'm going to talk about it. I was going to talk about the idea that, like, everybody is human and everybody has a past. Everybody has things that they've struggled with. And I kind of thought about it as, like, we have cravings. You know what I mean? Because I was thinking about, like, what that guy said with the 10%, the 90%. And I started looking at my diet. And I was like, man. I was like, I'm not going to lie. Like, the diet don't match the body that I want. It just, it doesn't match up. And in that same way, I started looking at my spiritual life too. And this is not even like, this is even recently. I'm like, the spiritual diet don't match the level that I want to be at. And it shows, it be showing so bad. Like, it's like, of course I'm still growing in my relationship with the Lord, and I'm doing my little 5-minute Bible study before I go to bed. Honestly, sometimes so that I could feel good about myself as a Christian. Like, oh yeah, I read my Bible today. Time for bed. But then it's like that 5 minutes compared to 3 hours on TikTok, compared to like 2 hours on YouTube. And it's like, no wonder you're still wrestling with your thoughts. No wonder you're still struggling with your prayer life. Look at the proportions. It's off. And dare I even say, like, the actual time that you spend reading the Bible, that might be the 10%. Like, let's be realistic. Like, if there's 24 hours in a day, taking away all the time that you need to, like, eat, sleep, whatever, like, we realistically don't spend all of that time reading our Bible, like, directly. However, I think it's very, I don't want to butcher this word, advantageous. It's to our advantage that our habits outside of reading the actual Bible reflect who we would like to become, right? And I'm not trying to be unrealistic here. Like, I understand at the end of the day, it's good for us to have fun. It's good for entertainment. It's good to kiki. But then it goes back to the comfort thing. It's like, don't let comfort keep you from your calling. Don't be so stuck in, and like, I don't want to use the word comfort again, but don't be so comforted by certain things that you allow it to inhibit you from fully stepping into who God has called you to be. Because let's be honest, like, TV is really great. TikTok is really great. All these different social media platforms are really great to, like, kiki and catch up with friends. But God did not write that in his plan for you or for me to spend 2 minutes reading my Bible and then 4 hours scrolling on TikTok. And now I'm not getting started on this podcast. Now I'm not, like, getting in my prayer bag to tap into my blessings. Now I'm not getting in that word to feed my spirit, because what? Like, my time is occupied. I think we don't realize, like, we get filled with something. Each day we get filled with something. Like, we have to intentionally fill ourselves with the word. We have to intentionally fill ourselves with things that are fruitful for us, because if not, like, we're gonna just indulge in empty calories. Like, you can really genuinely think about it as a food, like, and you have to discern too, because there's, like, different types of food, right? You just have to know your goals, because there's certain things you're like, all right, I can have in moderation, whereas there's other things where, like, it's just not wise to indulge at all because of where you're at, or even because of where you'd like to be. So I was gonna touch on that even more, but I don't know. We already kind of dived in. Amen, God. So let's just officially go to my notes. So yeah, that's what I was kind of talking about. Just, like, the idea of cravings, and just the idea that we're real people. Like, it would be so unrealistic. And I think just that's one of the things too. Like, I think that there has been this unrealistic, false perception that when you become a Christ follower, yes, yes, he redeems you. Yes, he saves you. Yes, he brings you out of Egypt. But just like the Israelites, sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, things get hard. And you want to go back to what's familiar. You want to go back to your cravings. You want to go back to your comfort because that's all you know. And I feel like that does not make us bad people for wanting to resort to our comfort spaces. I actually, I started to look back on the verse and I was like, I actually kind of empathize. I actually kind of empathize with the Israelites a little bit. Like, they were being really annoying, but at the end of the day, like, yes, they were enslaved for 400 years, and yes, they were enduring terrible treatment, but I think it came to be the point of, like, that's all they knew. For generations, all they've ever known is bondage. All they've ever known is the conditions of bondage and how to get by in bondage. And so even in freedom, it was like, it was like, as they were walking, like, in different parts of the wilderness, and they were, like, in places where they had to call on God, that's unfamiliar for them. Like, perhaps you're, like, somebody who, like, you're used to, when you face trials, maybe you're used to circling back to the blunt. Maybe you're used to circling back to your toxic ex. Maybe you're used to circling back to social media. That's me. Maybe you're used to just, like, circling back to these unhealthy habits, right? Because it's familiar, And I'm sorry, I feel real passionate about that because it's familiar. And I was like, man, like, you could think, like, like, those are cravings. Like, yes, we become Christians, and we get redeemed, we get saved, we get brought out of all these things, and we get our new identity, and it's like, yes. But sanctification is a process, and I think it's unrealistic to think that you could, well, actually, let me not say that, but it's like, it's normal to step out of, like, if you've been struggling with a certain thing for your entire life, and it has been the only thing you've ever known to resort to for your entire life, and all of a sudden, now you're in the kingdom, and now you're hearing, oh, don't turn to drugs, turn to God. Oh, don't turn to, like, sleeping with somebody. When you feel that feeling, turn to God. And it's like, it sounds good. Like, of course that's what we should do, but sometimes it's difficult. It's difficult because we're just not familiar with what that looks like. And I feel like if we had more open discourse about, like, hey, not gonna lie, like, yes, I'm in the kingdom, and yes, I desire to move straight forward. I desire to have calling on God be my first response, but not gonna lie, right now, like, I'm having cravings, I'm having withdrawals, and I think if we had more of a safe space where we felt it was okay as Christians to be able to address those things, to be able to, like, open up and sit down with people and be like, yo, like, I've been struggling with this, I still feel like I really like this thing. I feel like it would help us to be able to get the resources that we need and the intervention that we need to be able to keep strong and keep, honestly, like, I'm thinking about it too, and I'm like, yo, like, for every single time that the Israelites, they would bicker and all of that, I feel like if they didn't have that intervention from Moses, maybe they would have booked it. Maybe they would have been like, forget this is weird, I don't want this. I don't want this smoke. I don't want this wilderness. Take me back. Take me back to Egypt where they have the good food. They got the seafood boils. They got whatever they would eat. I don't know. The soul food, collard greens, cornbread. Like, at least there, between the slave work, I can have a snack. But, see, I started thinking about, I'm hungry, you guys. Can you tell? I'm like, waiting to eat after this. But, man, I actually lost my train of thought. The food is so good anyways, but yeah, no, I really feel like I got it back. I really feel like if we were to have more spaces where we could speak about the things that we wrestle with and the things that we long for that are outside of Christ, we could get like the resources for, like, for example, for people who know that they shouldn't be having sugar, they could have a zero sugar sweetener. You know what I mean? You could maybe see like how you could have that desire that you would normally fulfill with that ungodly thing, how you can now have that fulfill with that godly thing. Because if you look at it as well, right, there's a reason for everything that we do. So it's not just, oh, I love to smoke weed. It's not just, oh, I love to sleep around, or I love to sleep with this person. It always comes from a source. It's like, oh no, like when I sleep with this person, I feel loved, I feel fulfilled, I feel comforted. When I have the weed, I feel like I'm less anxious. It feels like it's comfort. Like it's always a reason, you know? And like I said, just going back to like what you know, like if you've only ever known for those things to be fulfilled through the things of the world, of course, like when you come into the kingdom and you hear, all right, go pray about it, go do this, go fast. It's like, what? Like that, because also I feel like that's not, it just doesn't seem as attractive at first. If we're being honest, it's like, what? Go pray about, like, no, like I just want to da-da-da, whatever, right? But yeah, and then I wrote in, this is kind of getting good. I'm like loosening up a little bit. Yes, Lord. I'm sorry, I'm screaming at you, man. I'm just getting excited. So one of the notes I put was like, imagine if when you were hungry, instead of turning to your comfort, you turned to God and asked him for daily bread. Because let's pick up that Bible again. This whole scripture talks, I don't know if I mentioned like what the title was, but the title is Manna and Quail from Heaven. And so it's so crazy because I kind of read the first 3 verses and they're like complaining. They're like, Lord, we're hungry. Give us some food. And God provided for them. He heard them. And it was such a great reminder that you guys, like, God understands. Like, he knows that you get hungry. He knows what your life looked like. He knows that you crave certain things. But he wants you to have those desires. Well, those desires are neutral. To be loved is neutral. To want comfort is neutral, right? Like, it's some scary stuff. It's some sketchy. Life is hard, right? It's natural for us to desire certain things that just make us better. Like, as people, we're not meant to be alone. Like, it's okay to desire company and comfort and all those different things, but it's just how are we fulfilling it, right? And I think what's important for us to understand is that he not only understands and empathizes with you, but he provided for them instantly. He ends up providing, I'm like, how do I go about this without reading like the whole thing? He ends up providing manna and quail, so that he provided food for them. Manna was like this type of bread thing, and then they had quail, which was also like some type of food. Sorry, I didn't really remember. But the point was, he provided. And it just gets so good. Like, it's just, it gets so good because not only did he provide, but the Bible in this chapter, it talks about how, like, no matter like how big the family was or how small the family was, like, everybody had just enough. Like, no matter what it is that you're struggling with, whether you think like it's a big thing or a small thing, like, God has just enough. He has just the thing to provide for you. But we do have to kind of like trust him, and we have to trust him, and we have to like turn to him to fulfill like whatever that need is. And another thing that I really love is the fact that it was daily bread. Like, yes, they could gather as much as they needed. However, they were instructed. Oh dear, let me find it. Stay with me now. Then this is verse 19. Then Moses told them, do not keep any of it until the morning. But some of them didn't listen and kept some of it until morning, but by then it was full of maggots and had a terrible smell. Yeah. That just like, I feel like that just again goes back to like the whole that's a whole bigger theme of like disobedience. And actually I think it goes to show that like sometimes that's good. Sometimes even when you see that God has provided for you, like they got specific instruction that they were going to get what they needed, but that they had to keep returning for the daily bread every single day. And not that, I mean, God could do anything, not that he couldn't allow the manna to just be a one and done thing where they would like stock up and then have enough for years to come, but God's heart posture is like, no, like I need them to not only rely on me today, but rely on me every day, daily bread. Jesus wants to be our daily bread. Like walking with God, like he wants you to rely on him daily, and he will provide for you daily. What happened when they didn't trust him? What happened when they tried to like, store up things for themselves? And I think the thing too is like by storing up things for themselves, it's not that it was bad to do, but it's just that they were doing it so that it was being done from a place of like not trusting God enough. It's the best way I could put it. Like, it's not that it was like, because some people might be like, oh, like I don't see nothing wrong with that. Like, that's smart. You're storing up. You like gotta make sure. But it was the fact that like they were, communicating with the Lord, and he was the one like letting them know, like, I will provide for you daily. I'll give you what you need. Return back in the morning. Like, I'll have it for you. Right. But they were like, oh no, like I gotta keep me a little piece on the side. Like, what if he don't? It was really coming from a place of like, what if he doesn't come through? And sometimes, if we're being honest, conviction. If we're being honest, sometimes when God like tells us that he will provide, like we keep certain things on the back burner in case he doesn't. Like, all right, God, I know you're gonna come through. I'm gonna wait for my whatever promise and da. But just in case, let me just you know what I mean? Sometimes we do that. And I don't know. That was just so good to me. So good. And then I have some more Bible verses. And then we're going to wrap up because it's been so long, you guys. I thought I was going to have me a little 30-minute lesson. And God said, nope, 1 hour. So I think I just wanted to wrap up again by... You know what? Yeah. God understands, you guys. I think I don't even want to like hit you guys with too much, because I have like other Bible verses. I'll probably list them. Maybe I'll list them or I'll talk about them. Let's just see. But I just wanted to close by saying like God really does understand. Like he knows us very well. He knows that we're not perfect. He knows that the closest possible thing to perfection that we could ever be is by walking with him. And he doesn't expect you to have it all figured out. And I don't know, man. He just loves you. He wants to provide for you. But it does take faith. It does take like that. It's a little, and it's scary. Like, honestly, being on here, you guys, I'm like, whoa, I don't know, God. Like, I don't know. I don't feel like, I don't even know what the qualifications are to like be a successful podcaster or public speaker or whatever. But what I do know is that I'm truly, genuinely in the place where I'm like, yo, like my life is not my own. Like, I don't know what the best way is to live my life. Like, I've tried to go about like my own version of success and being my own boss, and like, I could do this, I don't need a man, I don't need this, I've tried it, and it's so exhausting and so overwhelming. And I'm truly at the place where I'm like, all right, God, you're the one who brought me here, so exactly what exactly what I need, exactly what the assignment is that you have for me. Like, how do I match my plans to yours? How do we walk equally yoked? You know, how do I offload my burden onto you and offload my worries and my anxieties and my troubles so that I'm not walking by myself? Because this life is hard, you guys. I'm telling you, this life is so hard. And if you're walking around with a whole bunch of heavy burdens saying like, how am I supposed to figure this out by myself? Like, you're not meant to. You're not meant to. The creator of the universe, the person who brought you here, the being that brought you here never ever intended for you to have to walk on your own. But he does want you to trust him. And I guess like to tie it back to the whole idea of don't let comfort keep you from your calling. I don't know, man. You just have to trust God. You really have to trust him. I think you really have to fall more in love with his will for your life than with your will. And I think that comes from like being in the word and like getting to know his character, because when we get to know his character and you get in his word, you realize that his plans are so good and they're meant to prosper you and they're not meant to harm you. And you get to realize that his character is good. He's just so good. Like he's so good, and he really just desires for the best for you. And who better to plan out your life for you? Who better to help guide you in this walk for you being your most successful, most fulfilled self than the person who made you? I'll wait. Exactly. So I don't know, you guys. I'm feeling good about that. I'm feeling like we could just end here for the first episode. Yeah. I did have more Bible verses, but I'll probably just drop it in there for you guys. I don't want to overwhelm you. Okay, we are gonna go deep into Bible and deep into different things, okay? But today, light intro, get to know me. I'm excited. I'm nervous. I'm excited. Enjoy spring break. Sorry, I'm screaming. Enjoy spring break. Enjoy the rest of March. Get in the gym if you're not in the gym. If you want to be in the gym, it helps. It helps, man. I don't know. I just hope that this is like a prompting. I hope that you get from this episode and you're like, yeah, let me start that podcast. Or you sit with I want your first response to be to sit with the Lord and to just really, maybe it would be helpful to even like write down like, all right, God, what are the desires that I have? And how are some ways, honestly, that you've seen that I tried to fulfill them with things of the world? And then what steps could I take practically to be able to turn it so that you're the one who's fulfilling those things? Amen. All right, you guys. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.